Welcome to part 2 of my mallet build videos. If you haven't watched part 1, I'll put a link to it down in the description. And in this video we're going to finish this up, glue it together and put the finish on it. So stay tuned and we'll start that. So all the patterns are removed. What I'm going to do now, I'm just going to do a dry fit to see how this goes together before I start gluing it. Make sure I don't have any serious mismatches or complications I haven't seen. So it's very simple. These pieces go in the center and the handle goes right in there, and then put that on top. We'll glue it up in those layers, and that's basically get it. Once we get it lined out, we just have to carefully glue each layer and get it lined up as best it'll go, and then sand it. So I think I'm going to like that. It's going to have a nice look to it, and it seems to be pretty hefty. It's a pretty solid wood. Both kinds of wood are very solid. So I think the best thing we can do now is just start gluing it together. Now, ever so slightly before I did this, I took these pieces to my belt sander and smooth that a little bit, put a little bit of a fresh surface, make the glue adhere to it a little better. So maybe it'll soak up the glue better, give you a fresh surface there. If they harden a little bit due to drying and the setting in the shop, it won't soak up glue as well. So all of these surfaces that I'm going to glue, I did that too. Just a real slight, not really trying to really sand it, just to make sure it didn't have anything on it, and to kind of give me a fresh, slightly fresh layer of wood on that. So I'm going to put a little glue on both surfaces. I got a little light mark there. I don't want to get any glue in here yet. So I got me a little piece of scrap wood here just to kind of help smooth it out. Probably more glue than I need, but better too much than not enough. I'm going to clamp that pretty good and let it squeeze out. Just make sure you don't put the glue on the wrong side of this piece, because it does matter. Because you want the top to line up. Now I'm going to use the handle to get the spacing there to make sure the handle will fit in between it. It's all lined up very nicely. I'm going to let that sit a few minutes. I'll pull that handle out of the way just to make sure it doesn't get glued in yet. So pull that out. And I'm going to let that sit a few minutes before I pick it up and clamp it. Let that get a little tacky so it don't move around when I pick it up. So that's been clamped up a little while. So what I want to do before this glue sits up real hard, I'm going to clean this excess off with this chisel. That'll give me a good sanding surface. It's easier to get off now than later. Gonna need a little sanding right there. It's a little bit off. I have to get me a smaller chisel and get that inside. I have to clean that out again before the next step, but mainly what I'm wanting to do right now, I want to see how this matches up and do any sanding I need to do, and also put this piece on it to make sure there's not any major problems. Looks like that's going to be real good. But I got a little bit of sanding right there. It's easier to do that because this sticks up a little bit, and I don't want to sand that down. I like that sticking up like that. It's just easier to sand that without that in there, and that's the reason I'm doing it this way. So I'm going to let that glue set up some more, and then I'm going to sand on those. Probably use my belt sander. Got a little bit off right there. That'll be easy to fix. That's not bad, but I'm going to take a whack at it. But I'm going to let that glue set up some more before I do that. Yeah, while that glue's setting, I'm going to relieve the corners. Need to relieve the corners on this up to this breaking point on the handle. It says right here to don't round off above that line. So you do that on a router. You can sand it, and I'll probably will sand it some, but I'm going to leave it a little bit with the chisel. Just kind of take a little bit of it off. Now you got to watch. You won't go this direction because the way it's cut, you'll be digging into the grain coming from the other direction. And I'm not going to do a lot of this. I'm just going to kind of go down through there. And this is faster than sanding. I don't really want to set up my router table just for this operation, because just sitting over there under some stuff. Need a good sharp chisel. Put a little rounding on that. Take that sharp corner off. I'm going to do a lot. Got a little bit deep there. Come back and work that out. Got to watch how the grain is going. to dig down and take a big gash out of it. Just a little at a time. Kind of feels good right there. We've got grain here that's kind of going against us. You gotta read the grain on that so you don't gouge down real deep. I think that's good for a start. I'll get some sandpaper work on that and then see what else we can do with it. So I just used some 60 grit sandpaper here and just work this over real well. Yeah, I got some 150 grit. Don't have to do a lot. Just want to ease those corners off. Make it comfortable to the hand, and that's pretty good. Get all that sawdust off of it. Then we'll see how everything fits together. So I'm real pleased with the way this is fitting. Handle feels good. It fits down in there real nice without any real significant gaps. So I'm gonna glue that in, and I'm gonna take this and glue right on top of it. I'm gonna do all that in one operation. Main thing is getting this lined out when I get it on. This is fitting real nicely right here. Don't have any lips or anything. So let me get some glue on that, and we'll start gluing this together. Alright, I got that in place. Now I'm just going to glue this put glue on this whole surface. Kind of wiggle that around, smooth the glue around a little bit. Mainly want to get the top in line. Get that light where it'll shine. It'll down the side, it'll show any glue, the glue will shine where there's any that wing gauge sticking out. So anyway, that looks pretty good. I'm gonna let that set a few minutes and then I'll clamp it up. And so I got that glued on. I'm real pleased with the way it's coming out. Got everything pretty much smooth. I did a little bit of light sanding on my belt sander, but not much. It came out pretty even, without any real lips or gaps or anything standing proud. So next thing I want to do right now is I want to drill these holes. I've got a Forstner bit in my drill press, and I got it set to be long enough to go all the way through. But I'm going to put me a little deal there to get it started. What I got here is this is a piece of a mallet that I made from a tree that fell in my backyard. That's cedar elm. It's a pretty hard wood. I made that after watching Paul Sellers and Rex Kruger. And that's an oak handle. It's not a great little mallet, but for what I had to make it with, it's the best piece I could get out of that slab of wood that I had. But it works. I've used it on chisels and what have you. But I'm going to use it here to tap a starter spot right in that. Yeah, give me some nice little starter holes. So now I'm going to move it over to the drill press and drill those holes all the way through. Then I got some 3/8 dowel, and I'll cut the pieces a little bit longer than what's needed. Just put a little glue on them and drive them through, and then cut them and sand them off on each side. So let me get set up at the drill press and we'll see about doing that. Well, I had a bit of a camera malfunction at the drill press. If you don't see anything, that's why. If you don't see anything at the drill press, I'll try to salvage some of that video if I can, or maybe get some stills out of it if nothing else. But I got those holes drilled, 3/8 of an inch all the way through. Now I'm going to cut me some dowel an inch or so longer than this and glue them and driving through. So let me cut that up. I'll do that on the bandsaw real quick. Okay, so I cut these two pieces and went to the diff sander and I sharpened them a little bit, took that corner off, make it a little easier for them to go through. Now I'm just going to squirt a little glue in those holes on both ends. Let that dowel carry it through. I've got a little hole in my tabletop here. I'm going to try to use as a place to drive it through. And there it is. That went through very nicely. I'm going to do the same thing again on the bottom one. hole's a little bit tighter. And there it is, it's through. So I'll let that glue set, and I'll take my little, I got a little trim saw. You can just sand that off, but I'm going to let that glue set, and then I'm going to trim those ends off of there. Now I'm going to use this little saw to cut these. I'm not going to cut them completely flush because I want to sand them down to the final. And this is a little pull saw. So I'm going to cut these both sides off real quick, and then we'll worry about sanding it and coming up with a finish. Actually, what I'm going to do next, I'm going to take these sharp corners off all the way around, up and down and on the bottom. Just make it a little more easier to handle and touch without a sharp edge. And I'm just going to use this little file, take it down to about a 45-degree angle all the way around. So I'm going to do that next, and then I've got some boiled linseed oil. I'm going to try to use that to put a little bit of a finish on it, mainly just to protect it from humidity, because being a mallet, you're going to be banging it. You're not going to put a finish on it that's going to protect it anyway. It'll chip off if you had a hard finish. So I'm probably going to use this boiled linseed oil as a finish for this. But for now, I'm going to take these corners off. So you could take those edges off on the sander. I just decided to do that. This is a really tough wood, and I wanted to be a little more aggressive with it. I did hand sand it a little bit, as you can see. But I just wanted to ease those edges, put about a 45-degree on them and round it off a little bit. It makes it a little more organic and easier to touch. So now I've got this boiled linseed oil. In fact, I think this probably has some beeswax in it. But we're going to see how this works, how it makes it look. Put a pretty good coat on it. Let it soak in. I'll let that soak a little while, and I'll buff it and maybe put another coat on it. That really brings out the color of the wood and the grain. I'll let that set a while, let it soak some of that in. Come back, see if it's another coat. I may just buff it and see how it looks from there. I may have to reapply that occasionally. But we'll let that set a little while and soak in, see how it looks from there. That's been on there about an hour or so. I'm just going to buff it off a little bit. We believe that's soaked up pretty well right there. That's almost half beeswax and half boiled linseed oil. And that's going to leave a nice little, I just want a little humidity proof layer on it. And it kind of brings out the color of the wood. So I'm going to call that done. I'm pleased with it. I like the way it looks. It's got nice help. I think the handle will work. It's going to be strong enough. But I don't do a lot of work with a mallet. I do use a chisel occasionally making dovetails or something, but not a lot. But if you like that sort of thing, I'll see if I can find some more kind of tools we can make with the scroll saw. And if you like that, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Check out my other videos. I've got several. I'm making several different kinds of items, and I'm going to make plenty more. So stay tuned, and hope you enjoy that, and look forward to the next one. Thank you for watching.